Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of Scriptwriting for Beginners. I'm James Brennan. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and all of that YouTube malarkey, as well as on Twitter at JamesBrennan_. As promised, for this video, I will be looking, which is part 2 from the video I did last week, which was looking at Jimmy McGovern's television drama Time, starring Sean Bean and Stephen Graham. And not only was it a fantastic three-part series, it was really good to finally get hold of the script, thanks to the BBC Writers' Room, and to have a look at how simple the layout and the descriptions are, really emphasising home how important story is, more so than the look and the smaller details of a script that some people can kind of get hung up on. The first part of the video actually was one of my most viewed videos so far, so thank you to all who have watched it, and hopefully you either have learned something or just like me wanted to show appreciation to what a great script and what a great writer, and wanted to see how it was done on paper first before it was filmed. The first part was focusing on the introduction of Sean Bean's character called Mark, which ran to about page 11. So typically that's about 10-ish minutes, 9-ish minutes in filming terms. And for the second part, because I enjoyed reading the script so much, for the second part I wanted to then focus on how Stephen Graham's character is introduced, who is basically our second protagonist. In this, you don't really have a protagonist and an antagonist. The antagonist would be the other inmates who try set out to cause problems. But cleverly, the way it's written is the antagonist would be Stephen Graham to Sean Bean's character, because he is the prison guard and Sean Bean, aka Mark, is the prisoner, and vice versa. Stephen Graham is the protagonist, but his antagonist, because people who cause him problems are prisoners like Mark. However, they both have this understanding relationship where they both know that they're kind of the good guys within their particular areas, one being a prisoner and one being a prison guard. And to introduce a second character on sort of 10 minutes into it is kind of interesting, but I think it was done to spend a very good amount of time with Sean Bean's character Mark to really set up who this story is going to be about, and then you're going to contrast it with Stephen Graham's character Eric. So let's have a little look at how that's done. So to recap, we finally end Mark's introduction, shall we say, on "Are you a nonce?" Mark realises he has to answer, "I killed a man," because, to recap, throughout the whole of the introduction, he kind of kept stum about what he had done, and he was very much nervous, didn't really interact with any other guys who were being introduced to the prison system, be it first time, second time around, third time around, etc. Then we cut to a new day. We know this by dawn, whereas all of this took place on one night. Not only does it have first night written in the scene heading, we also knew it because it took place from night, and now the following scene is dawn, meaning it's the following day. Eric McNally's house, so you know the character's name. But again, we don't necessarily know this if we were watching it, but for the purpose of the people filming it, they could then choose a house that is going to be Eric's house. So every time that you have a shot of a house, you know it's going to be Eric who's in there. A wardrobe door is yanked open. Eric McNally, 40s, has done this. Now let me have a look. Is Eric the same age as? No, slightly younger than the description of Mark. Just out of curiosity, I want to know that. Has done this. No shirt. His wife Sonia, who is also played by Stephen Graham's real life who is played by his wife in real life, Hannah. I really like that kind of relationship because well, one, it is genuine, and second of all, the way it's written, it just shows you that, you know, this guy in his morning isn't talking about work. They're in the bag. You've not ironed them. I've told you I'm no longer ironing shirts. A bit of banter. You said you ironed my prison shirts. Now, this is a great way of revealing exposition. You know, he works in the prison system because obviously he has shirts belonging to the prison. I didn't, for God's sake, woman. That's just a bit of banter. That's just to show you that they have a very healthy relationship. That isn't meant to be used in like an aggressive way. David might have a white one. You could wear a jumper over it. He storms out of the room. That just shows you a typical sort of workday morning in the household. David McNally's room. Now this is where it's very, very interesting. And I remember picking up on this the first time I watched it. Eric in. He yanks open the wardrobe, finds a white shirt. 22 years married and you're suddenly a feminist. Again, bit of banter. He looks around the room as he pulls out the shirts. It's empty. No one has slept in it for years. It gets to him. Now, I remember when I watched this, I knew something was meant to have happened in this room, or happened to the person who lived in this room, who is David. What that was, we don't know at the time, whether or not he had died, he had been murdered, he was, you know, he disappeared, whatever it was. But it's the fact that Stephen Graham goes in there to get another shirt, and it's a very poignant moment. He looks round and the room hasn't been touched, and it like I said, it gets to him. Now, it's a great subtle way of showing you having this pending mystery that does quickly get like resolved and told and explain what it is, but by having a simple look which emphasizes the whole show don't tell, rather than Eric going, oh, I miss my son, or whatever it would be, just have a simple look. It gets to him, and that is enough for the audience to know, hang on a minute, I think there's something a bit unusual about this room and the person who's meant to be living in it. Day, Eric Manley climbs into the car, belts up, drives off. Eric Manley enters the prison car park, parks, gets out. Again, just to show you that he's a prison guard and not a prisoner. Eric Manley in, he puts his phone into his locker and taking off his coat and placed on a conveyor belt. He joins the queue for security. The door ahead of him slides open. He and others go through. That door closes. They now have to wait for the door ahead of them to open. It does so. They all go through. I think this is done because you could just have it jumping right from there to there to there. This just, because it wants to show authenticity, you have his routine of how he gets into prison, which shows you how tedious the process is, how long the process is. Again, factors into what happens to Eric later on in the line with, spoiler alert, with him trying to smuggle stuff into the prison on behalf of one of the prisoners. I think once, you know, establishing what he has to go through in order to get stuff in, well, not getting stuff in the first time round, makes you then think, oh, he's going to have a tough ask on his hands because of how tricky it is to get inside the prison. A-wing landing, Eric Manley walking. We realise there are about a dozen prisoners following in his way. He gets to a cell, opens it. Now, again, I just think this is brilliant. We realise there are about a dozen prisoners following in his way. Now, 12 prisoners to one guard is quite an unfair ratio in terms of, you know, how it could kick off, and, you know, you're outnumbered basically. But I think this is done to show that either Eric is respected by the prisoners, he's feared by the prisoners. These prisoners aren't that bothered about trying to rebel in this moment, and it establishes Eric's status amongst the prison and the prisoners. He's not a rookie, and he's kind of respected enough that these guys are happy. Well, I say happy. These guys are accepting to walk in a single line behind him. He gets to a cell, opens it. It's Mark Cobden's. Mark Cobden, yes. It's yes, boss. Yes, Mr. McNally, or yes, boss. Okay. Again, establishes his authority straight away. And again, it shows you that Mark is quite submissive and happy to just, you know, not kick up a fuss. Yes, boss. Induction, come with me, bring your stuff. Mark follows him out and joins the prisoners milling on the land, all clutch his bag. Safraz Jawad is here. Jono and Stevie too, with Baz keeping a wary eye on them. They all follow Eric McNally. I'm your personal officer. Any problems, you come to see me. If I can't sort it, I'll find someone else who can. Right. Exposition, just to give you the fact that Eric and Mark are going to have this close-knit relationship more so than any other guard because it's his personal officer. Is Gabba still here, boss? Gabba, fat bastard with shaved head. That's half the prison. What's his proper name? Just know him as Gabba, boss. I owe him money for the last time I was in. Shows you that he is a... well, first of all, it shows you here that he might not be his first time in prison and that he's kind of in amongst the prison gang because he knows people already. Gabba, fat bastard with shaved head, bit of banter, and then establishing that this isn't his first time. They reach a gate, Eric Manley unlocks it, they all go through. And you're worried about that, yeah? Yes, boss. Find out his proper name and I'll check for you, okay? Yes, boss. I'm in here. Now, I think this, again, just re-emphasises Eric's authority and people respect him enough, you know. Find out his proper name and I'm check for you, okay? Yes, boss. He's happy to help the prisoners out, and I think the respect is mutual enough where they treat him with respect because they know that Eric gets the job done. Again, all playing up to this and foreshadowing the later development with Eric's character. They enter a room, there are chairs and desks with sheets on paper. Okay, take a seat, please. Don't sit by him, mate. He's a grass. I'm no grass. Again, he's a grass. Quiet, please. Bit like a school teacher. This bit shows you prison chat, and this whole idea of being a grass in prison is very, 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 very bad. And again, comes into play later on. No effect whatsoever. Shut it, please. Bit more demanding this time, but they still argue. If you don't shut it, I'll nick you. If I nick you, it's seg, and what a start, which is segregation, and what a start that'll be. Now shut up. Eric's threats shuts them up. So he's tried to take the kind of school teacher approach, a little bit more aggressive. Then boom, he uses his prison authority to get them to silence, and then it works. You're unlucky to come in over the weekend because it means you'll spend the first couple of days banged up. You might get association later on this afternoon, but that depends on staffing levels at the time. In front of you is paper where it says name and prison number. I want you to write your name and prison number. Anyone in for their first time. Mark and another man, the only ones to put their hands up. Welcome. Name and prison number, right? All done. Oh no, right, done. No response. Right, boss. Right. So all of that, again, just shows you the formality of what it is to be introduced to prison. Eric again is walking Mark along landing. They reach a cell. Eric unlocks it. Your new abode. Another word for home. Eric walks in first. There's a prisoner in his cell. Bernard, late 20s, early 30s. You've got company, Bernard. All right. Eric Malik leaves, slamming the door, shutting them. Mark, Bernard. Now let's just skip over this. This is just, again, showing you Mark, focusing on Mark now more. Finally, going a bit more into detail about his crime. Dangerous driving, 4 years dangerous driving. Yeah, you killed someone then. So this Bernard, quickly, must know kind of the law quite well, because he's like, 4 years for dangerous driving. You must have killed someone then, because the timing for the crime doesn't necessarily add up. Manslaughter, who did you kill? My father. Your hands are soft. Great juxtaposition. Who did you kill? My father. Then he says about your hands are soft, as if to say, you know, he's touching his hands with the hands that he's then used to kill his father. Let's have a look. Let's go down to the next time Eric is in the scene. This is when Eric cuts himself at night, and Eric then comes in and basically saves the day, and helps. Very graphic scene, brilliant scene. So quite a while till Eric's left in it. There we go. Right. Yeah, you sounds a pound. Something I could do for you. Yeah, I see your lads in Lordswoods. Perfect. So all the stuff before it. So we've seen Sean Bean's character introduced. We've then seen Stephen Graham's character introduced. We then had a brief, more focus on Sean Bean developing in prison for his first full day there, and now we're back onto Eric, which then kickstarts Eric's storyline. Sean's Bean's storyline at the moment is obviously him dealing and trying to survive in prison, dealing with his, his crime that led him there. And at the moment, we don't really know what Eric's storyline is, because at the moment he's just been used to kind of show Sean Bean in. But this is where it gets going. Pete, who we met in the sweatbox in the first scene, remember that was the prison van, saunters up to Eric. "All right, boss? Yeah, you, sound as a pound." But Pete lingers. "Something I'll do for you?" "Yeah, I see your lad's in Lowood prison, boss." That's a real hammer blow to Eric. Now, we know who, before he even says, "You're David," we then know that then relates to the scene when we first meet Eric, where he's kind of lingering in a child's bedroom, in a kid's bedroom, poignant, it hasn't been touched. We now know because he's in prison. "My lad, you're David." "I haven't got a lad called David." First of all, we know that's a lie, because in the first scene we see him, his wife says maybe David's got a jumper you could borrow. So we know that Eric is lying. When you write scenes where a character is lying, you don't have to put in in a sub comment lying or gritting their teeth, because the information that the reader picks up on should be enough to tell you whether or not he's lying or telling the truth by either conflicting with previous information stated, if that makes sense. That's strange, because you mention him on Facebook. Only there you say he's working away, but he's not, is he? He's in Laurel prison. Interesting. Makes you think, how on earth does this Pete guy have him on Facebook? And another thing that I did get told actually myself about prison is, prison guards, is you have to be very careful about what you put on public information, like social media type stuff, because it can get used against you. Like this, if you're a prison guard and you mention that your son or your daughter lives here, they then can quickly get to the son or daughter and blackmail you as the prison guard, which obviously therefore happens in this. We're not close. Don't think you can use this, because there's no real bond between us. Showing you that Pete isn't exactly one of his favourite prisoners, whether or not he has favourites, but it's not exactly going to be a relationship like he has with Mark, where he may, well, as you know, they eventually does end up trusting Mark, and the whole prison system begins to trust Mark. No, meaning no. That's very confusing. Well, why would you not want a bond between us if I know this information? No statement. And how comes you're down to visit him tomorrow? That he should know that nearly takes Eric's breath away. Brilliant. And bond or no bond, you want him to be comfortable, wouldn't you, boss? Yeah. Well, we all know the lad's there, right? Then make sure he's all right. Is that a threat? No, boss. So if I just ignore this conversation, what will happen? He won't be as comfortable as he could have been. Or as safe, maybe. Okay, you make him comfortable, you make him safe. What do I do in return? We'll let you know about that. Give me a couple of days to think it's over. Of course, boss. This sets up a time frame, a timeline of when Eric has to make this decision by. And it's putting your characters under time pressure and a time bomb is a great way to cause drama. Not only have you created drama by having the fact that he is approached by a prisoner, knowing about his son being in a other prison, and could make his life tricky or easy. That's drama enough and pressure enough on him as a parent. Adding into that a certain time frame he has to make a decision by means that he can't necessarily just blag it and let the clock run out. He has to make a decision in a couple of days. And Pete, who I think ultimately knows what the decision is going to be, doesn't try to push him because he's already pushed him enough, says, "Of course, boss, doesn't matter." Pete walks away. Eric's mind is racing. A prisoner, Floyd Walker, approaches. Put an app in 2 weeks ago for a change of wing, boss, and heard 2 weeks is nothing. Not when you're surrounded by nutters, it's not. But Eric Maley's walking away trying to think straight. Boss. This is used to show you that the information has got to Eric. Normally he would respond to Floyd and probably say something like 2 weeks is nothing, but I'll speak to someone and try and speed it up. Not when you're surrounded by nutters, it's not. Meaning Floyd it feels uncomfortable being in this type of wing, perhaps. Maybe his crimes doesn't reflect the majority of people in there. And that's why he says, not when you're surrounded by nutters, it's not. That sort of line enough says to tell you that maybe Floyd is a bit more of a lower petty type criminal. But Eric is walking away trying to think straight. Boss. Because he doesn't respond, it tells you that the information has really got to him. Now, back onto Mark. Now, we won't focus too much on Mark. I'll just scroll towards the end to see how how episode 1 kind of concludes. Let's have a little look. Brilliant. So, this is to very fast forward. This is a brilliant example of how to conclude kind of a character arc in the first episode, and to have them almost simultaneously in scene by scene next to each other shows you that these characters have come into the storyline together, be it different jobs and for different reasons, but they ultimately end in the same place, both in prison, and they ultimately end with decisions that will change their careers and change their life. So throughout this episode, Mark's been getting bullied by another prisoner, and Jackson Jones, who seems to be kind of like in control of the other prisoners, enters and says, "Should have hit him back, mate. I'm a teacher. Your life won't be worth living then. Your life won't be worth living now." Jackson Jones goes. Now that gives something to Mark to ponder over. If Mark's going to survive in the prison system, Mark's going to have to unwillingly become a prisoner, just like the guy who punched him in the first place. Up until this point, Mark's tried to think, no, I'm a teacher, I'm not a prisoner, I'm a teacher, so therefore I can't do the acts of a prisoner because I'm a teacher. As the story progresses, bearing in mind this is scene 83, this is 58, so about 50-ish minutes in, we're wrapping it up. Jackson Jones, who's an experienced prisoner who has no quabbles about being a prisoner for the rest of his life almost, because he controls the wing, should have hit him back, mate, bit insincere, but just shows you that he's kind of informal. I'm a teacher, your life won't be worth living now. A very, very poignant thing for Jackson Jones to say to Mark. If your life is worth living, you've got to hit him back and you've got to fight. But then by fighting, you become the prisoner that you obviously are trying so hard not to become. Jackson Jones goes. So that's Sean Bean's character of Mark sort of wrapped up for this episode, showing you a potential transformation, showing you that he's at his pinnacle of his character arc. If he does do this, he becomes this. If he does do this, he becomes this. Now let's see how we wrap up Stephen Graham's character of Eric. Pete alone. Pete is the guy who threatened Eric with, his son being in another prison. The spy hall opens. It's Eric McNally. He's in a segregation cell because earlier in the scene he kicked off. "You've been asking for me?" "Yeah." "What is it?" "Just wondering, boss." "Wondering what?" "Why you and your lad don't get on." "We do, but he's somewhere safe, somewhere you can't lay a finger on him." Now, earlier on in the scene, Eric decided not to go ahead with whatever deal that Pete and the other sort of prisoners tried to blackmail Eric with, and he sneakily gets his son David sent to another prison, supposedly without any of the other prisoners knowing. However, he does. "We do, but somewhere he's safe, somewhere you can't lay a finger on him," meaning we've moved in prison to a different prison, you can't lay a finger on him. "He's in Chapel Grove." So whatever Eric has done to try to save his son David, it hasn't worked, because Pete straight away knows the new prison. How? Completely confused. How? On Eric Malley, as Pete's words sink in, he loses it. He opens the cell door. Pete hits the alarm. Now, interestingly enough, normally a prison guard would push the alarm if they feel threatened, or a prisoner would only press it if they're being threatened by another prisoner, but then you get labelled a grass. What's interesting about this is Pete, who's been threatened and in prison, perhaps most likely for quite violent crimes, he hits the alarm because he's afraid of what's going to come next. Eric goes for Pete's throat. "If any happens to that lad, you're dead, mate. I will personally come in here and rip your fucking head off. I'll rip your head right off. Your other officers have got to him now and are shouting him and pulling him off, Pete. Shoulders, you shitbag. I'll kill you. I'll fucking kill you." They get him out the cell and slam the door once again. Eric McNally recover him. It shows you that Eric, unlike Mark, is going to fight to keep his life the way it is. Eric's fighting on behalf of his son, whereas Mark's only fighting on behalf of himself, but at the moment hasn't fought. Eric, realising that he has to fight fire with fire, attacks the inmate, which obviously is a big no-no. But also shows you that Eric has a switch, and shows you how much his son means to him, which ultimately then leads to his decision to then agreeing to take drugs and whatnot into the prison on behalf of the prison Pete and Jackson Jones, etc. And I think, again, this concludes, again, looking at Mark's character, goes into prison very, very naive, very, very nervous. He's a teacher, and it ends on him being beaten up because he refuses to become a prisoner, and he still in his head thinks, no, I'm a teacher, until an established prisoner says to him, no, you've got to fight. Contrasting that with Eric's character, Eric starts the episode as a very law-abiding, trustworthy prison guard who everyone seems to respect. However, there's a few other prisoners who don't respect him and try to blackmail him, ultimately leading Eric to kind of fly off the handle and be very, very unprofessional by attacking him and threatening him, which ironically is the thing that Pete has done to Eric. So it's roles reversed. So to kind of conclude episode 1 on both characters almost having to do the same thing, i.e. fight for various reasons, it shows you that their journeys start off very, very differently, but at the heart of it, they're good, honest people, regardless of what choices they have made, finally ending on this kind of conclusion that both of them are going to have to fight to keep their lives the way they want them to be, i.e. Eric wants his son to be safe, and Mark himself wants to be safe, and they both have to fight. So I hope you've enjoyed this part 2 of reviewing episode 1 of Time by Jimmy McGovern. Personally, I think it's one of the most enjoyable television scripts I've read. Now, I don't know whether or not that's because if you like the show on TV, you're then more interested in the script. But I was very interested to know how a prison setting would be described, how the characters would be described, and how the roles of a prison guard and a prisoner aren't stereotypically. It's not like a Shawshank where the prisoner is kind of, you feel sorry for him, but then he gets bullied by a bully prison guard. Eric McNally is us, but then also so is Mark is us. Mark is what happens when an average Joe gets sent to prison. I wouldn't say accidentally or innocently, because he did commit a crime, but he gets sent to prison and isn't cut out for prison. And Eric is our logical thinking, our trustworthy eyes in a prison system that's out to try to corrupt him. And how is this going to affect Eric's professionalism and his morals? Because again, Mark's morals are tested throughout, leading up to him having to fight, and Eric's morals are now tested because he's ultimately going to have to break the law. So he's no better than the prisoners that he looks after, which is a very clever kind of question to end the episode on, and as well as this YouTube video. So thank you very much for taking your time out to listen to this video. Next week's episode, it's a bit of 50-50 at the moment. I'll surprise you with what I might be doing. And for now, please like, subscribe and share the video, and take care.